he absolutely believes, beyond most shadow of a doubt, that this is currently a simulation we're living in. Hi everybody else, and thanks for watching us watching me on our happy hour today with Snap Forward. Last week, hopefully you saw our video where we were on site at Brew Gentleman with the Center for Victims for their Men Challenge Happy Hour. It was a good time. They had a lot of good information, a lot of nice people there. If you haven't seen it, we are posting it on YouTube today to watch it again. We cut out some of the pauses and things that happened in the meantime with noise and trucks going by and buses going by and little interruptions, but we kept the best part of the content in there. So if you want to go back and see it, it's about a half an hour long. And we interviewed Tyler from the Center for Victims, and yeah, he had a lot of good information, and it was good. David Atkins was there also, spoke with us for about 10 or 15 minutes towards the end, and gave us his personal story and some of the things they're doing looking forward. So, good time with Center for Victims last week about a sensitive subject. If you are interested, coming up, they have they're calling it the Sounds of Silence charity concert at Jurgles next Thursday, and we're going to post a link in the feed for their Eventbrite link where you can buy tickets. I think tickets are $15, so it's not terribly expensive. Donnie Iris is the headliner, and it should be a good time. I'm looking forward to going to that one. So this week I'm going to talk about, there's a lot of tech-heavy topics. A lot of things happen with the internet outage and some Netflix issues and a couple of iPhone topics that I'm going to talk about this week. And then on the marketing side of things, I'm going to touch on being authentic and giving the right message to who you want to target as a customer and make sure they're happy with you. So the first thing I want to talk about, as always, we talk about the beer that I'm drinking. And this week, I thought it was appropriate to go with a Cleveland-based beer since I'm rooting for the Cleveland Indians in the World Series. Not so much because I like the Indians, but more so because I don't like the Cubs. So I went with Great Lakes Brewing Burning River Pale Ale. It's actually a very good beer. I don't even know. I may have had it.
That's right. It's made in Cleveland?
It's made in Cleveland, yeah.
Oh, I had no idea that brand was made in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm. I like it. I think I may have even had it on one of our first episodes we did with this. But I don't mind having it again. Go Cleveland. Even though you lost last night. So the big tech news that came out last week was the internet outage. And sites from Twitter, Eventbrite, Airbnb to Spotify, PayPal, Box, which is a file storage service, to Netflix and Reddit all went down randomly throughout the morning on Friday last week because of a denial of service attack on a specific provider. Basically, that came from somebody that took over security cameras. So there's these old security cameras that were manufactured around 2004, maybe a little bit later, by a Chinese company that gas stations have installed, and they're given access to the internet so they can remote in and watch what's going on at their location. So somebody hacked into all these systems, and using the combined power of all of them across the internet, started slamming the service with bad traffic. So, you know, the crux of the article, the crux of this topic is that we might see this more and more often as we're creating this Internet of Things, which is basically connected devices from even those little Amazon things. When you run out of Tide, you click the button and they reorder Tide for you automatically, to refrigerators, to microwaves. We're connecting everything to the internet. And a lot of these companies don't have experience with internet-connected devices. They're just doing it to add a feature. And it might be a useful feature, reordering milk or whatever might be the issue. But if security is not taken into account, then we run into the likelihood, the increased likelihood, that this issue is going to continue to happen, where entire portions of the internet are brought down by these little devices turning into zombies for somebody behind a computer screen. that just wants to cause mayhem or hold somebody ransom. So I don't know where this is going to go, but it's sort of the what many people have been saying is going to happen, the Terminator type situation where the robots take over, or the whole all the systems go down because of everything being hijacked. So it's a security issue that we're going to continue to watch, and as things go more and more to the cloud, it's going to become an issue. Well, speaking of the cloud, Netflix reported that they have found people's usernames and passwords floating around the internet. And they're saying that it's not so much that they've been hacked, which I believe they're saying they haven't been hacked, but it's that people use the same username and password across many accounts, and Netflix searches for those on a regular basis, and as they find them, they warn people. But if you use the same username and password for Amazon as you do for Netflix, then one of those providers finds out that's going on and will warn you about it, or shut down your account, force you to reset your password. So they found a cache of usernames and passwords on the internet, and they're warning people to, 1, not use the same username and password across your accounts, 2, go ahead and change that now. It's again, as information stolen and viruses, and we have many stories about things being hacked. And in fact, our daily tips this week, we talked about passwords getting stolen through keylogging viruses. It's exactly the sort of thing we're talking about. You can find that article on our website right now. On the marketing side of things, there's a new most interesting man in the world. What did you think about him?
I didn't like him that much.
I didn't either.
Think they were funny. I didn't think their things were funny.
I didn't either.
I only thought the last thing was funny when they said he played college football in high school.
I agree.
And he carves a coconut.
I agree. When he carves the coconut into a football.
Yeah.
I thought the whole thing seemed forced. It didn't have the same personality.
Because the old Dos Equis man used to just sit there and say and look very this guy was
naturally cool
and I don't know.
Yeah, he was just a naturally cool,
Yeah.
been there, done that. And they say they made it a point to be more modern, not like he's reflecting on his life, but like that he is doing these things now. But I don't think the actor has the same personality as that older guy did. We'll see where they take it, but I would say if you watch the video, I don't think it has nearly the personality that the old guy did. So switching over to Apple. Apple has a couple of things going on, and a lot of them are not good news. So they're delaying the AirPods now, saying they're not quite ready for prime time. They have a statement out there that the early response has been incredible, but it's not quite ready, so they're delaying it. Some articles I've read have said that they are actually better than you think they are. They don't quite look as obnoxious as like big Q-tips hanging out of your ears. But apparently there's some issues going on with it. And I know with my iPhone 7, I've had some issues with Bluetooth, dropped calls, and a lot of things going on. And one of the major stories that came out is that when you buy an iPhone from Apple themselves, you get one with a Qualcomm LTE modem. Qualcomm is pretty much the industry leader in these LTE modems and provides fast, reliable data speeds on LTE networks. Well, Intel was also contracted out to create these modems for the iPhone 7, and the Intel ones get installed into AT&T and I believe it's T-Mobile iPhone 7s, and they are showing considerably decreased speed when the signal is a little bit weakened. If you're in an area that doesn't get that 5-bar signal, then your speed decrease is much quicker than the decrease as you go along with the Qualcomm modem. And I think I've noticed it on mine. There's often when I'm going through an area when my bars go from 5 to 2, and I don't ever remember that happening with my iPhone 6. I haven't noticed so much of a speed decrease. I'm not doing things that require a lot of speed, but it's something that especially the power users are really going to have an issue with. And the other thing I've noticed with mine is that I've had to put mine into airplane mode and take it out of airplane mode to actually get a connection at all. So it seems like it's holding on to towers a little bit too long. So as you drive away from a tower that it's connected to, that signal decreases, and then I can still make calls, but my data stops. And the only way that I can fix that is by going into airplane mode, shutting it down, reconnecting by turning airplane mode off, and then all of a sudden everything works again. So I don't know if, now I haven't experienced that since I did the new 10.1 update, so maybe they fixed that. But you know, it's kind of goofy little issues with the wireless, especially apparently with the Intel modem on mine and a lot of other people's. The other big issue now is that the iPhone 7 32 gig edition is up to 9 times slower in data transfers than the larger one, like the 128 gigabyte and the 256 gigabyte model. So, and the way that flash memory works, the more you have, the more you know, you can do like a dual channel where they interact a lot faster. The chips interact faster, and by having the smaller chip, you only have one chip that it doesn't get that transfer speed. But nobody anticipated the transfer speed on the 32 gig model being so slow. So, you know, while most people might not notice if you're transferring data to and from the phone, it probably will be considerably slower than if you're doing it from a larger phone. And then I don't know the real world testing, how anybody has worked it out, but using benchmarking software, they've seen noticeable differences. And my last complaint about the iPhone is that I just got a car that has Apple CarPlay, and I've had issues with it at least a couple times a week where you plug in the iPhone, and what happens is when you plug the iPhone into the USB port of the car, it sort of puts the iPhone screen on the car's entertainment system, and you can click on the apps as if you were clicking on the iPhone. And when it works, it's great. But I've had a lot of problems where it freezes, or the apps crash, or sometimes it doesn't even pick up that the phone's connected, so the phone doesn't even interact with the vehicle at all.
Does CarPlay do enough where it's worth it, or is it just?
I like it. I like it a lot.
What stuff does it do other than play music?
Well, you can use Apple Music, you can use Pandora, iHeartRadio, the podcast app, text messages.
Other than just like Bluetooth, like, is it different than having Bluetooth and just playing that through your phone anyway?
It is. It's just so if you have a bunch of Pandora stations, you can scroll through the Pandora stations on your radio rather than having to go on the phone.
Yeah.
So that's really the main thing with me, and same thing with the podcasts. It also, so on my car, it takes over the navigation with Apple Maps.
So it just sucks it into the car.
It sucks it into the car. So if you already have something going on the phone in Apple Maps destination, it automatically puts it onto the car.
Okay, that's nice. That part.
It's nice when it works, but Apple Maps is.
Yeah, it's slow to process it into the car.
Yeah,
probably.
sometimes it'll just freeze. Like I'll press the home button on the car and it just stops.
Like in your car?
I do,
well,
and it actually works better than Apple Maps. Yeah.
'Cause you're not using data in your car, are you?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
That's nice. Yeah.
Right. And it also, what we found out when we were traveling to Parker Dam and Kinsu Bridge a couple of weeks ago, is that the iPhone uses data, and when you don't have a signal in the middle of the woods, you can't get navigation, even if you already had the trip plan. So you have to, if you don't have a navigation system in the car. So we had to unplug the phone and re-put the destination into the navigation in the car, and it worked flawlessly. But Apple Maps just completely stopped. So yeah, it was kind of an interesting little problem. But it's so for anybody that says I don't need navigation in my car, I can get it on my phone until you go someplace with no coverage. So big blow to PC. IBM claims it's moving to Mac, and it is drastically reducing IT support calls and its operating costs. They say that a Mac is $273 to $543 less expensive over 4 years to maintain than a PC. And this from a company that used to own a PC manufacturing company. Lenovo's product used to be IBM. So they've estimated that they've deployed 90,000 of these Macs already. And we'll see how it works out. The article asks a lot of questions like why they're saving that much money or how they're going about saving that much money. What makes the Mac so much more reliable? They're saying that support calls are down like 40%, based on, what moving to the Mac. Now the question is it buggy software that's made for the PC compared to the way it's made for the Mac, or is it actually the PC itself? And they're comparing it to what we consider to be a pretty reliable brand in Lenovo and their ThinkPad product. That's the brand that we have the fewest amount of problems with and the one we recommend. Now you see, I use a Mac. I enjoy the Mac, but there's a lot of things I cannot do with it that I need to, with software that's only made for a PC. And I can run Windows virtually on here, but it's sort of a pain in the butt and uses quite a bit of battery life to run 2 operating systems. So I don't know. We'll see where it's going. I know from an admin perspective, I think management would be hard. How you manage your employees, resetting passwords and things like that would be a little bit more difficult when you don't have the Active Directory advantage. And there's, connecting to network drives. There's a lot that could be an issue, but maybe those things go away the more we move to the cloud. Well, it sort of remains to be seen. I'd like to see some follow-up articles about this and figure out really what the strategy is from IBM and how they're handling this. But it's an interesting article. We'll see how it goes. Apple being the cool product anymore, right? In fact, later on we're going to post a Simon Sinek video that is on YouTube. It has something to do with a later topic I'm going to bring up here, but he even talks about how people that have PCs don't take care of them nearly like people that have Apple products. Like nobody with an Apple takes a sticker and covers up the Apple logo on your Mac. And when have you ever seen a dirty Mac? Everybody takes care of their Mac and makes sure it looks incredibly nice because it's part of who they are. Where a PC, it's just sort of something you throw around, right? So we'll see where it goes. Now, somebody in the news, I feel like constantly, is Elon Musk. Tesla, SpaceX, everything he has going on. 2 things that I thought are interesting. One, Callie was talking about his plans to colonize Mars. He believes in the next 40 or more years that we're going to have thousands of people on Mars. And he'll be able to create a 2-way transport system where you can reuse a spacecraft and go back and forth between Mars and Earth. And it would only take 3 months to do it. But if you're going to make this trip, you have to be sort of prepared to die on Mars or on your way to Mars.
The first journey.
The first
colonizing.
The first one, which they're saying right now would cost about $10 billion per person, but they think they can bring the cost down to $200,000.
I don't know who has $10 billion, like that many.
Right now, not many.
How many people who are prepared to die?
Right. Yeah, they probably enjoy that $10 billion.
I don't even know if there is like a person in the world who has $10 billion that's prepared to die to go on that.
Unless they feel like they're close already.
Yeah, unless it's like a 100-year-old man that's like, I have $1 billion to throw around. I don't want anyone to have it after I die.
But if you look at Steve Jobs died in his 50s from cancer that progressed. Now, he may have died if he had it treated anyway, but he didn't have it treated because he was working hard on, I forget which iPhone it was at the time, but they say that if he would have been more aggressive in treating it, he may have lived longer or possibly lived. So, some people, especially people that brilliant, might have different priorities. So, I don't know. Seeing Mars would be really cool, and I guess if I felt like I only had a few more quality years left anyway.
Until they make it, and like multiple trips have gone.
I don't need to be I don't want to be the pioneer.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
There's no need for that.
Right. It would be pretty cool. But it's only a 3-month trip compared to, I think now it would take a year or longer if I'm not mistaken. But it might not matter anyway because we're all living in a virtual reality world like the Matrix, right? So in this video that's on this link we're posting, you can see Elon says that VR and the fact that we're living in a virtual reality world right now, like all of this is a simulation, is something that dominates his conversation right now with his brother, so much so that they have barred it from certain areas of their lives where they just can't bring up the topic. And he goes on to explain that if you look at the progress of technology in the past 40 years, if you look at, Pong 40 years ago was games where 2 bars and a dot going back and forth. And now we are on photorealistic video games where things look almost real. If we've progressed that far in 40 years, what's going to happen in another 40 years? If we keep up this pace, especially now with actual virtual reality happening, where people are putting things on their faces and they're immersing themselves in the world, if that progresses for 100 years, where will we be? If we progress in a couple of 100 years or 1,000 years, who's to say how you're going to differentiate between what's real and what's not? So he's saying that either this is the original timeline or we're already living in a simulation. And he's saying it's actually 1 in a billion, I believe, is the number he uses, the odds that he uses. 1 in a billion that this is already not a simulation.
Well, this isn't a simulation.
This isn't a, so it's he absolutely believes beyond most shadow of a doubt that this is currently a simulation we're living in.
I told you we should have talked about Black Mirror.
I know. Callie wants to talk about Black Mirror, but I haven't seen it yet, so we're going to have to wait till next week.
I'm sure Elon Musk watches it and loves it.
Probably. Yeah. From what I've heard, from what you've been telling me. So, I don't know. What do you think? Are we living in a simulation, or is this all real? Does it all matter? Are we all jacked into the system? I don't know.
Since you phrased it that way, I'm now a little bit...
It's kind of, if you think about it...
You phrased it that way, but... I'm gonna say no, now that we have like a timeline of like the world, like...
But it could be just all, we could all be just sitting in a computer.
I doubt it.
Never know. With Facebook, we talked about Facebook and Facebook for Business. We actually applied for it after I spoke about it 2 weeks ago, and they still have not gotten back to us about getting into the program. You have to pay for it, but you also have to apply to get into it.
I had no idea you'd apply for it.
Yeah, I didn't either, until I went and tried. One cool thing that I like, and that we can start avoiding getting into Facebook. So Facebook Live, they don't build an audience for you until you start it. So that's why we start Facebook Live with these before we start talking, because it takes a while for people to see that you're here, and then they start coming in. And you'll notice it with a lot of news outlets also. They'll start broadcasting 5 minutes and then wait for an audience to build before they start talking. So now Facebook has brought in the ability to schedule a Facebook Live event where it'll actually post saying you're going to go live at 4:30, and then when you go live, like, people are already there looking for it. They have a link to go to. They don't have to just sit there and wait for it to show up in their feed or on your page. So it's very interesting. It's very useful for news outlets, marketing companies, and what we're doing, and it's something we're going to have to see if we can do it. I don't know if it's going to be able to be done on the phone or if it has to be done through a broadcasting application on a PC, like what we've been trying to do with the Open Broadcaster software. It's the problem with some of the software is it takes too much CPU power to crunch the video and make it look good without looking real fuzzy or choppy. So that's why we still use the phone right now. But we're getting there. We're getting there. So on to the main topic. The two things: one mini topic and then a regular our main topic. So with us here, it's always about, how do we be on the positive side of a conversation, of a relationship with a client, with anybody that we talk to. One of our values is positivity through osmosis. So, if anybody calls us with a problem, or if we're dealing with somebody, we always want to be the positive influence. And there's an article on success.com talking about, the title is Attitude Adjustment 101, Say It Out Loud With Me. So, and we talked briefly about it with my wife Lynn a couple of weeks ago, about how a lot of people believe that you have to believe something before you can actually be motivated into doing it, or before you actually feel a certain way, where this article is saying that to feel a certain way or to be positive, you actually have to do something. You have to say something out loud about or something positive. Say it out loud to actually be positive or become positive. And something that I had said in recent days is that you don't feel generous until you do something generous. So you're not going to, walking past a homeless person or just thinking to yourself that I'm a generous person doesn't make you generous. You don't feel like a generous person until you actually do something for someone or hand someone money. So actually making the statement or saying that you're happy or that you're positive, or saying a positive affirmation creates a positive mental mindset for you and solidifies it in your mind. It's a very interesting article. It's not very long. It'll take you 2 minutes to read it. So, it's what it's saying here is if you're always thinking about how bad life is treating you, and you're always telling somebody about how, bad, how bad things are for you. If anybody that's next to you, you're just telling them how bad and miserable you are, then that just becomes your reality. Where if you want to change your life for the better, start by consciously changing what you think and what you say. So becoming self-aware and saying that positive statement. So the article is very good. We'll link it up for you, and quick read, and you can see what I'm talking about. So on the positive side of things, I want to talk about attracting the right customers. It's something we struggle with here. All businesses struggle with it. You want, a lot of times, any customer, but in time, as you grow a customer base and build your business, you want the right customers. So for us, we identified in our IT business that we want people that are proactive, that realize they can't do it themselves, that it's inefficient to do it themselves, and they want someone to come in, take care of it, so they can go about their business and do it incredibly efficiently, while we work efficiently to support them. So that's our ideal target market. So everything we do and say should support that belief and that goal. And when we talk to businesses, and I especially in marketing, a business is built a certain way, it's built on a certain culture, and then when someone tries to come up with marketing, they market in a way that is not compatible with that. It's if someone says, so Simon Sinek is someone that I recently I've always been aware of him, but I recently started consuming his content, and I would absolutely recommend it to anybody that is in business in a leadership role or wants to do better. Look up Simon Sinek. We'll post a video on YouTube that he talks about attracting the right people, and the title of it is "If You Don't Understand People, You Don't Understand Business." And an example that he uses is Tiger Woods, where Tiger Woods was the clean-cut example, was the smiley guy, the happy guy, the nice guy, blah 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 blah. And then you find out that he's actually been pretty much a dirtbag, especially to his wife. And he's saying, because he lied to us, because he was inauthentic, people don't like him. And if he would have been the bad boy of golf, if he would have been the guy that's like, hey, look, I'm going to run around with a bunch of women and I'm going to do this, and I am not squeaky clean. If you look at somebody like John Daly, certainly not the perfect person, but also a golfer. Drinks, has a good time, parties, but people like him for that. So if you are your true authentic self, then people that are attracted to that will be attracted to you, and you'll sort of come together and you'll get a fan base or a friendship or whatever. So you're not going to, and he also uses an example of, you don't go to your friends and say, how would you like me to dress? What would you like me to do? How would you like me to behave? Because people are going to say, just be yourself. They're going to like you for being yourself. And I think we all, especially, as you're like a teenager and in your 20s and 30s, maybe even, people are trying to become friends with other people. Maybe they admire people, but you're always sort of trying to find your personality and find out who you are. And the relationships are not deep if you're trying to be someone you're really not. So if you're portraying yourself a certain way, but then inside feel a different way or truly something else, then that starts to leak out, and people can sense it and sense that there's something wrong, that you're not being honest or forthright, or that something's not right. So it just strains the relationship and it seems a little dishonest. So he's saying the same thing happens with businesses. That if you don't put forth who you really are, if you're telling someone you are one thing but then behaving a different way, people aren't going to trust you. And we dealt with, it happens all the time, to be honest with you. Everybody that wants to put out a website or put out marketing material or develop a branding strategy, they want to develop the branding strategy outside of who they really are. We talked with a company a couple of weeks ago who they came up with a strategy with the executive committee, but when we we're talking with the employees to kind of see how they felt about the company, they didn't want to hear it. They wanted the branding strategy, and then they wanted to tell the employees what direction the company was going, who the identity was. But the problem is, if you develop that identity independent of your employees, then the employees aren't going to know how to be that identity. You've hired employees based on a previous notion of who you are, and then you're suddenly saying, well, now we're this, and all these employees are going, okay, but I don't know how to be this. We'll try, but it's going to take a while to get there, and a lot of people aren't naturally going to be able to be there. So if you have a bunch of employees that are, I don't know, I mean, how would you describe, let's say if you have a bunch of negative employees, or employees that are like the cost cutting, highly efficient but cost cutting, need to get things done, aren't really personable. But then all of a sudden you're going in a direction where, you're going high customer service, high value, and you spend a lot of time helping someone. Well, then all these employees that are built to be fast, efficient, maybe a little grumpy, aren't going to fit into the high customer service, high value model. So you have to completely rebuild the employee base to fit who you want to be. And, so you have to organically come to this who you are, and it takes a long time to get there, but you can't put out one message and be another. So you have to, if you decide to make that change, if you decide to be, for us, we're not good at being a break fix, call us when you have a problem company. We do really well with our clients when we can proactively avoid problems, and then with the problems that do arise that we plan for, we can take care of quickly so that we can get back to doing the proactive stuff. So we're built to handle reactive, but that's not our primary mission. So we don't want to handle phone calls from 300 companies a day with all of these random things so they're constantly going different directions. We want calm. We want to work with companies that want to also be calm. So if we want calm, we can't be introducing instability, or we can't be introducing problems. So we always have to be calm and be the positivity through osmosis people. When you call in, John and I talk about it all the time. When someone calls in here, he has to be the calming influence, the voice of reason, certainly I understand you're upset, I'm happy to help you, and let's work through this together type person. He can't be he can't, you're not going to have confidence in him if he's, you're saying, hey, we're all going to be calm, and then you call in and he's, all over the place or frazzled. So, we everything we do is driven towards being that calm entity. And, when you're developing that business marketing message, you have to think, who do we most appeal to? Who are we most compatible with? Who do we most like working with? And who is going to like working with us? And when you're authentic, you put out there that message. People that are attracted to that message will come to you. When you're attracting those customers, what are their priorities? Why are they coming to you? And then what value can you provide to them? What's the most value you can provide to them? Is it that you're saving them time? Is that you're giving them the best price? Is it that you're relieving their stress in a certain way? Whatever that underlying issue. Somebody is buying a razor not because they need to shave their beard, but because they want to look fresh and they want to look attractive and they want to look hygienic. There's an underlying reason. So if you can address that and become their partner in that mission, even in something as simple as buying a razor, they become attached. So making them that attached is always your goal. And so that promise that you're making to them, if you're saying, in the case of the razor, you're saying that we are going to be, Dollar Shave Club. We are going to be consistent. We're going to deliver it to you. We're going to give it to you at a cheap price, and you're going to be happy with the result. Then that promise has to be kept every single time. Somebody can't be waiting by the mailbox for their razors, and it can't be late, and then all of a sudden their beard's not clean shaven, or it's getting all scratched up because they're using an old razor. Maybe they're getting stubbly or an infection, or they have to go to the store and buy something else. You don't want to let them down on that promise. You have to be consistent. You have to always be that thing that you were telling them you were going to be. Sort of like being that friend. You can't be, everybody has that friend that when somebody breaks up with them, all of a sudden they're your best friend. Callie, you have this person in your life where somebody's all of a sudden single and they're your best friend. They want to hang out all the time. They'll talk to you. They'll do whatever. But then as soon as they find a boyfriend, you never see them again.
High school.
Yeah, in high school. Well, it happens later on in life. It's happened to us quite a few times. There's those people that they're your best friend until they find somebody else, and then they, and that's the same thing. Is that, if you're providing a service as a company to somebody, you have to always be that, because the one time you're not, people are fickle. The one time you're not going to be that thing that they expect, they're going to start to doubt you, and it's going to implant a little seed. And sometimes it gets big enough, grows into something that they go somewhere else, and then somebody else develops that relationship with your customer. So to sum that up, there's a couple of points here. Not everybody is right for your business, but to be right to the right people, you have to be authentic with the message you're putting out there. If you are the cheapest, if you are the highest customer service, if you are the person that solves that deep-seated need that somebody is going to feel comfortable with you and come to you and purchase from you, whether it's the nicest kitchen in the city, anything that you're doing, deliver it and deliver it consistently, uphold your promises, and people will continue to come that are attracted to that message you're putting out there. The last thing, very Pittsburgh specific, on the Travel Channel, they featured 7 of Pittsburgh's delicious destinations. This article is in the Post-Gazette on Plated. They visited 7 places in Pittsburgh, almost none of them that I've been to. They have pierogies from Pierogies Plus, kielbasa from Butcher on Butler, hunky food, stuffed cabbage in particular, something my grandmother makes really well, from Emel's Lounge in Rankin, greens and beans from Serafino's in Crafton, which I have had. Their greens and beans, especially when they do it with sausage, is really, really good. Permane Brothers sandwiches, which I just had for lunch today. Sorry, Lynn. The half-pound fish sandwich from Woolies in the Strip, and turkey Devonshire from the Union Grill in Oakland, which I don't know that I've ever had turkey Devonshire. Have you? Next week, again, we're going to, I don't know that we're going to do a happy hour from there, but I'm going to the Center for Victims event at Jurgles, their Sounds of Silence concert. We posted the link on Facebook on this feed, and it's $15 to go, $18 at the door. Donnie Iris is the headliner. I would highly, highly recommend it. It's a good organization. They need all the support we can give them, and they're doing a good thing, so support them if you can. Otherwise, that's all I have today. I appreciate you watching, and I will see you next week for happy hour again on Thursday at 4:30. Take care. Have a good week.